Hi, this is Yasir Rahman, and I just thought I should talk about a few issues that are affecting us today. Uh, I primarily want to talk about what's happening in the United States in terms of the subprime crisis as of 6 months ago, the current crisis on Wall Street, the New York Stock Exchange fell, 777 points. Nasdaq was down about 10%, the Dow Jones was down about 10% as of yesterday, and even today it's been bad. The whole problem that the United States faces is primarily because their currency holds no value. Before we start off with anything, I'd like to just share with you a simple statistic. United States of America is the only country in the world that does not back their own currency with gold. As you must be aware, every other country in the world backs their currency with either gold or the US dollar. But why the US dollar, a currency which has no backing at all? See, the thing is this: back in 1971, the United States printed way too many dollars to support the Cold War and a few other wars, plus their own economy. A few years later, France, who had holdings of about $35 billion at that point of time, came up to the US and asked them to give the same value of currency in gold. Now, of course, the US Treasury had no gold with them, so they denied, in fact, you could amount to cheating in simple words. So the first thing that the Americans did was they ran straight to the Saudis, pulled some strings, greased some palms, and they cut a deal with the Saudis. Every barrel of oil that was sold by the OPEC would be sold in US dollars. This basically amounts to every other country in the world. Even to this day, we sell and buy our products, we sell our services in the US dollar. We accumulate US dollars and then send this money to the OPEC nations to buy oil instead. Right? So what do the Americans get out of this? A free lunch day in, day out for the last 30 years, maybe more. So that's something that's deeply disturbing. Now, this whole war on Iraq, what do you think it was for? Terrorism? Do you think Saddam had nuclear weapons, or he was even capable of having nuclear weapons? You are wrong, and you're probably joking. The whole point of this is to save the US dollar. Now, what happens is that the US dollar, if oil is not purchased and people don't buy US dollars day in and day out, the US dollar will eventually collapse, leading to a collapse in the economy, like we are seeing today and yesterday and for the last 6 months. Now, basically, Saddam Hussein had realized that he was buying US dollars, or rather selling US dollars on the oil he had sold, and therefore losing some money. Plus, he wasn't really happy with the United States of America. So he decided that since half his consumption was by Europe, he started selling his oil in euros. And this really affected the United States, as our graphs can show. The rupee strengthened, the other currencies strengthened, the euro strengthened, and this was affecting the US economy. So what did George W. Bush do? He cooked up an excuse of a terrorist attack, September 11th. I'm not denying it happened, it did happen. But he blamed Iraq for it, he blamed Osama bin Laden, he cooked up a connection between Osama bin Laden and Saddam Hussein and attacked Saddam Hussein. The first policy decision that was taken once Iraq was taken over was to sell all oil in US dollars again. Why would it make so much of a difference? Why? It's not only Saddam Hussein who did that. In fact, even Hugo Chavez, president of Venezuela, he started selling oil in other currencies, in the pound and the euro. And there have been several attacks on his life and for regime change. And all of this can be traced back to the CIA, another subrogate war to save the petrodollar. And even Iran now, which the US is claiming is a terrorist state, has nuclear power, has weapons of mass destruction, WMD as George W. Bush refers to them as, has started selling their petrol, their oil in every currency in the world other than the US dollar. Now, this is really going to affect the United States as Iran is one of the major producers of oil. Now, it's not going to be long before we probably see the US attacking Iran, and slowly other countries are catching on to it. Russia is now openly announced that it's looking at a way to set up a Russian oil exchange where people can buy and sell oil in rubles, and even India wouldn't mind purchasing their oil in rupees instead of the US dollar. It makes a lot of a difference. So what can the US do about it? Absolutely nothing. Just go in for a third world war, and it's not going to be far away. They are going to attack most major oil producing nations, especially those who refuse to sell in US dollars alone as a monopoly. The American economy is heading towards a crash. It's very scary because most world economies are dependent on them. But I think it's time for a change, time for every country to be independent in this global world. Too much of a connection with the rest of the world isn't very healthy, like we can see in today's markets. Americans can print as much as they want to, it isn't going to make a lot of a difference. Now, I foresee only about a couple of years before the American economy can crash completely, and before America starts buying their oil in pounds, euros and rubles instead of US dollars, and that is going to be one scary, frightful, yet positive event in the world economy. This is Yasir Rahman signing off.